The Clean Water Act of 1972 is the primary federal law in the United States governing water pollution. It was adopted as a way to eliminate release of toxic substances, eliminate additional water pollution, and ensure that surface waters meet standards for human sports and recreation. According to the Clean Water Act, all waters with a significant nexus to navigable waters are covered. But what does that mean? The Clean Water Act covers all waters, including waters subject to the ebb and flow of the tide, that are, were, or could be used as a channel for interstate or foreign commerce or the transportation of goods and people. Sections 301 and 502, adopted to protect the wetlands, require permits for activities that through the use of dredge and fill affect the bottom elevation of jurisdictional waters. These permits must be obtained through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. In 1977, an amendment was passed to Section 404 that addressed concerns that had been raised related to overregulation that resulted in a negative impact to agriculture. This resulted in exemptions for certain activities. These exemptions, based on jurisdictional determinations, include construction of farm roads, construction of farm or stock ponds, the construction of irrigation ditches, the creation of minor agricultural drainage, and the maintenance of drainage ditches. Abuse created a need to recapture some of these exemptions through the application of denial criteria. Requests for exemption are denied if any of the following criteria are met. The activity creates a discharge into navigable waters, the dredge and fill arises from a use that is new to the area, or the activity impairs the circulation and flow or reduces the reach of the water.
Thank you, Chris. Now that we have a better understanding of the Clean Water Act, let's talk about the case that really shaped how it has been, should, and should not be used. United States versus Riverside Bayview. The Army Corps of Engineers filed a suit against Riverside Bayview Homes when they began placing fill materials on its privately owned property near Lake St. Clair, Michigan. The Corps claimed that the area Riverside Bayview was using was a wetland adjacent to a body of navigable water. The district court decided in favor of the Corps. Upon appeal, the decision was reversed, stating that adjacent wetlands are not subject to the Corps' regulation, as long as they were not prone to flooding by bodies of navigable water, critical in supporting vegetation growth. Hence, waters of the United States were defined. As a result of this ruling, Riverside Bayview was free to fill their property, and the Corps' jurisdiction must not infringe on the Fifth Amendment through too wide an interpretation of the regulation. This case stood as a benchmark for the Clean Water Act, and it continued to stand as a precedent until one day, in the late 80s, when...
Hello, class. Today we're going to talk about the John Rapinoe versus the United States Supreme Court case. And as you see from my fancy outfit, I don't know why I chose this one today. Let me see here. I have a better hat here. Got a better hat here, class. So today on a case, and we're going to talk about, and we're going to keep talking about the case today, Rapinoe versus the United States, and we'll talk about this and that, and you'll see my daughters, and we'll all do this whole big case for you today to talk about the case about Rapinoe. And so let's get to the case here. I have, as you can see, 54 acres of beautiful land here that I purchased, and what I'm looking to do here is finally develop it. But before I go ahead and develop it, I'm going to call in my consultant to see if there's any problems with filling in this wetland here. Hi, I wanted to know, see this wetlands over here? Take a look at it. Just take a look at it, okay? I'm going to fill this in with sand because I want to build a shopping center and condos and apartments. Do you think there's any problem filling this in with sand? Yeah. I shouldn't do this, huh? Can I do this?
No.
No? Well, I'm going to do it anyways. What's the Michigan Department of Natural Resources doing here?
I have this for you.
This is for me?
Yeah.
A cease and desist order? Why is the EPA here?
You have to stop filling in the land with sand.
I'm not gonna stop. I'm gonna fill in all this land. The EPA can't stop me. Nobody can stop me. I don't care what anyone says. This is my land. I'm gonna build condos. I'm gonna build shopping centers. If you don't like it, I'm gonna take this to the Supreme Court. You can charge me with felonies. You can fine me. You can find me civilly liable for millions of dollars of damage. But I'm gonna fill this in, and I'm gonna build myself a nice big shopping center. I'm gonna have condos. And I don't care what you say. My building shall stay.
I'm here to talk about the implications of the Rapinos decision, which you just saw Andrew and his family act out. Rapinos was a developer who had 3 parcels of land adjacent to a waterway, but it was, when I say adjacent, it was 20 miles away from this waterway, right? And the EPA basically came in and said, no, you got some wetlands there, you can't develop this, don't do it. And he said, no, I don't, I disagree. I think that this is actually far enough from a navigable waterway that it shouldn't apply. The EPA said no, he did it anyway. They brought him up on criminal charges. In the end, he was actually, he was found guilty and was sentenced to 3 years of probation and $185,000 in fines. Theoretically, he could have actually gotten 5 years in prison, but the trial judge originally said, no, this is way too harsh for somebody who basically moved a pile of sand from one end of his property to another. So, in any case, it kind of bounced around the appeals court system and eventually ended up in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court looked at it and said, the Rapinos, this fellow is actually right. That if we leave things interpreted as they have been, then it's much too expansive an interpretation of the Clean Water Act. The federal government actually, we'd start running into problems in terms of state rights versus federalism, etc. The federal government is actually doing the Clean Water Act through the Interstate Commerce Clause, is saying that it can regulate interstate commerce, which is how it actually kind of weasels its way into many states' rights issues. And what they did is they said, here's the deal. Previously, people had said if there was any hydrologic connection whatsoever between a navigable waterway and a wetland, then the Clean Water Act applies. And in this particular case, what they said is, hey, this guy is 20 miles away. It's clearly only tenuously connected. That's way too aggressive interpretation. So really what we're going to do is we're going to say there needs to be a significant nexus of connection between the navigable waterway and the wetland. It has to be immediately abutting and bound up with the navigable waterway, and Rapinos does not have to pay this fine. The decision is overturned, and that was a major precedent that was set in exactly how much control the federal government had in regulating wetlands in states.
In the wake of the Rapinos decisions, the definition of water of the United States, navigable waterway, and adjacent waters were more narrowly defined. However, the court decision was a 4-1-4 plurality decision in which a final result received the support of the majority, but no unanimous opinion was delivered by the majority. According to precedent set for plurality decisions, when a fragmented court decides a case and no single rationale explaining the result has the support of the members of the majority, the position of the court may be viewed as the position taken by the member or members who concurred in the judgments on the narrowest grounds. In the Rapinos case, Justice Kennedy had sided with the majority, but he reached a different and more narrow opinion than the majority. His opinion of what constituted significant nexus became very important. For example, when a wetland is separated by sand dunes from the ocean, Justice Kennedy would decide that there is a significant nexus between the wetland and the ocean because water and things that affect water, like chemicals, can easily permeate through the sand and affect the water quality of the ocean. So the 4 justices siding with Justice Roberts, however, would have probably more strictly limited the law to waters with permanent flows like rivers, lakes, streams, and wetlands too, but only if they had a free-flowing surface connection to another body of water. Because of the plurality decision, when the agency rulemaking kicked in the wake of the Rapinos decision, the more narrowly interpreted Kennedy opinion formed the basis around which the EPA and Army Corps of Engineers adopted rules. The Rapinos case stands as an important one in the interpretation of the Clean Water Act. While it sets a more narrow standard for what constitutes water subject to the Act than what was set in the Riverside Bayview case that Jen discussed, the plurality decision and the new definition of the term significant nexus leaves much for the federal agencies charged with implementing the Clean Water Act to interpret. So there it is. The future looks really bright for Clean Water Act enforcers. With every major construction project, there's still going to be federal agencies that must be satisfied if there's any hint of impingement on wetlands. So thank you for your time. We'd like to end with a little water music from someone that had a handle on composing.